Welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. I'm your host, Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is the one, the only Larry Gardner in Adairsville, and of course, our fabulous producer, Wayne Ridenauer in Memphis, Tennessee. You can find us all at ATL Prime Sports on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and of course, Apple and Spotify as well. Our personal Twitters, at JJ Get You One for myself, at RWI Jr. for Wayne, at Corder Todd for TC Todd Corder, who's out umpiring some games tonight, and at LG for Real, though, for our very own Larry Gardner, the voice, the PA voice of the Rome Braves. How you doing tonight? We'll start with you, Wayne, up in Memphis. How you doing, man?
Well, I'm kind of more concerned for how the Grizzlies' chances are now that we've had some injury to key players, but we'll see what happens tonight.
Yeah, injuries have been the theme in the NBA playoffs thus far. I'm doing well, as so is the NHL to Atlanta talk as news broke of a proposed mixed-use development, including a 18,000 plus seat arena in Forsyth County. This site would be built in hopes to attract a expansion franchise, which would be our third expansion franchise, or have one of the teams move to Atlanta, and that would mean NHL could be back in the Metro Atlanta area. Larry, how you doing tonight, man?
Everything is well, gentlemen. Thank you for asking. Wonderful things up here in the Northwest Georgia corridor. All is well. Things are wonderful. I can't complain even if I wanted to, man.
That's what I like to hear. That's why I like you, Larry. You're an easygoing guy.
Simple and easy. Simple and easy.
What's on tap for today's show? The hottest team in baseball. Can the Braves keep this pace? NFL draft talk. And of course, got my Hawks hat on. We're talking NBA playoffs. Let's kick things off with the hot Atlanta Braves. Braves are the hottest team in Major League Baseball right now, winning 8 of their last 9. How many wins do you think this Braves team can get this season? What's the cap? Larry, I'll start with you, man. They lost today 1-0 to the San Diego Padres, at winners of 8 previous straight. And this is a really good team from top to bottom. And I was talking to Todd off the air tonight and saying, this could be the best total team the Braves have had. Let's just flash forward and say they win the whole thing. This could be one of those really good teams. I mean, they can pitch well, they can hit well. Obviously, the 21 team came out of nowhere. The 95 team was headlined by Maddox, Smoltz, and Glavine. So where do you think the cap for this team is, Larry?
If I had to put a win total on it, I think they are more than capable of getting over the 100 mark again. If I had to stick an exact number, I would probably say 106, 107. I think that's very doable, especially if those in the NL East continue to falter and get struck by injury bugs like the Mets and the Phillies have. I'm not concerned with the Nationals at all, but those are the teams that can come up and bite you if you don't pay close attention. But if I had to stick a win total, I'd say 106, 107 would be a great target number for Atlanta. The key, though, is simple. Atlanta has got every bit of the talent that they need up there in Atlanta. The farm system's a little. I don't necessarily want to use the word dry, but it isn't as full or as plethorous or as plentiful as it once was a few years ago when you had Acuna, you had Albies, you had Riley, you had Soroka, you had all of these talented kids in the farm system. So looking to see some more of those come up, but Atlanta's loaded, and everybody that's a MLB knowledge person or a media personality knows Atlanta's loaded, and hence the reason why they are doing as well as they are doing. If you wanted to be honest from top to bottom, especially when everybody gets healthy, I'm San Diego, maybe Tampa might be the only 2 teams. I'll even sprinkle a little Houston in there. In the entire major leagues that can compete 1-9 with the talent that Atlanta has when everybody's healthy.
I agree with you 100%. I think 106 is about the top number I would go. I think anywhere from 100 to 106 is a good guess. I'm sticking with the 100 number. I said at the beginning of the year, and that's what I'll stick with. I said 162, but they're on pace for well over that. Look, and you mentioned it. When this team gets healthy, they'll only get better, and that's why I'll prove my point. No Soroka, no Colin McHugh, no Rossell Iglesias. Those three will be back, let's say, within a month calendar time. Then you have Michael Harris coming back, who's the rookie of the year and an all-star catcher in Travis d'Arnaud. So you have a good core of this lineup and Harris and d'Arnaud coming back. And then you have a good ace possibly with what we saw from Soroka in 2019 coming back. Colin McHugh's a great innings eater out of the bullpen, and then Iglesias could come out being our closer. So you're missing some key pieces. So yeah, I think the ceiling's really high for this ball club. I think World Series or bust is a real possibility right now. Look, during the last 8 games, 15 home runs for the Braves, only 3 for the bad guys. It means the Braves pitchers are keeping the ball in the ballpark. They got a team ERA right now of 3.39, which is good for 6th in Major League Baseball. And the offense is elite. Through these, 19 games we played, just under 20, we're scoring almost 100 runs. That's 97 to be exact, which is 3rd in the bigs right now in offensive category. 269 team batting average. That's tied for 4th. 27 home runs right now. That's 3rd. That's standalone in 3rd place. So the pitching's there, and we saw the defense. At times, this is an elite defense. Once Arcia's back as well, which I haven't even mentioned, he'll solidify that shortstop position. And then we come to our next question. Well, what does this team do in left field? Do they slide Vaughn Grissom over there? My guess right now, the leading candidate, is going to be Sam Hilliard. Guy's played outstanding the last couple games. He had 2 hits in the loss earlier today, Wednesday afternoon, and guy had 4 hits in his last 5 at bats going into today, or including today. So Sam Hilliard would be my guess to start playing every day. Platoon in Rosario and Pilar, and let's get this thing chugging along and figure out what you do with Marcell Ozuna. Do you release him? Do you see what you can get? If you can get a vending machine and a bag of potato chips in the vending machine for him, you see what you can get at this point. But that's the lone question mark on this roster, is what you do with Marcell Ozuna, especially in that left field position. Larry, I'll ask you the same question. What are your thoughts on what the Braves do in left field moving forward?
I honestly believe that AA is working the phones and working behind the scenes for another, I'll say another mid-level move, because it's a luxury, but it can be an Achilles heel at the same time. When Michael Harris II is back in the lineup, depending on how you choose to utilize d'Arnaud and Sean Murphy, 1 through 7, you're pretty comfortable with. Who's to say AA doesn't come along and pull another Jock Peterson or another Jorge Soler type move with a couple of parts that you can use to platoon with maybe Rosario or Hilliard or Pilar? Idealistically, you don't want to have to part with 1 or 2 of those guys, but we've seen AA in the past take whatever he has to. He doesn't keep an emotional tie to the players on his team. His ultimate goal is to continue to put World Series rings on the fingers of the players for the Atlanta Braves. And because we have a general manager that's so focused to be able to do that, I would not take it out of the realm of possibility that he's not already working the phone, seeing what he might be able to do, And if that was the case, you might get a trade deadline type boost, because the rumors on the ticket for the MLB is that the Braves are trying to do right by Marcell Ozuna and get him 10 years of tenure in so that he can get certain benefits. And as long as the Braves are winning, I'm okay with that. But if you ever get into another 3-game, 4-game, 5-game losing streak, and Brian Snitker continues to roll out a batter that's batting 1 out of every 10 gets a hit, that's not idealistic for putting your team in the best position to win. So, long answer to a short question, I think AA is really going to try to see what he can do to make another move so he can get somebody in left field to solidify that position. But in the meantime, you're not really losing a lot between Hilliard, Rosario, and Pilar at all.
Well said. Well said. I think one of the reasons Snicker and Alex Anthopoulos keep trotting Ozuna out there is if he hits a couple more home runs, he increases that trade value just a little bit more to see if maybe someone bites on that, maybe a designated hitter position. Or remember, the guy that has Gold Glove experience, so he can play the position fairly well, and he's actually done it very well this year. Thus far in left field, obviously batting under 100, but yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Marcell Ozuna's time is very limited here, and if you do get in the thick of things and the Phillies and the Mets race really heats up, and it's this close as it is right now in, let's say, August, and you're still trotting Ozuna out there, yeah, it's going to be kind of scary. Folks, Wayne, you have a number for these Atlanta Braves, and I'd like you to throw that number out and tell our listeners. And I see you got your Rangers hat on; they're in first place in the AL West, and that's quite one of the surprises in Major League Baseball right now.
Well, it's not a surprise to me, but the only two teams that I predicted preseason to win their division, who are actually leading right now, is Texas and Atlanta. All the other ones are kind of near the bottom. But I picked a number 104, and I guess it's kind of hitting around the same area y'all is. But I predict that there's going to be a kind of a slide after the All-Star game, and Atlanta's going to experience a little bit of a slide. People are going to start getting worried, and then they're going to pick it up and make the playoffs. So not to worry. Now, Texas, on the other hand, always seems to slide in August, which messes up their chances.
Yeah, that's the dead heat of summer. That's where the pennant race really picks up, is right after that All-Star break, and there's a lot of panic buttons pressed at that moment, and there's also a lot of cruise control buttons pressed at that moment too. So that's when the season really starts taking form. Guys, any final thoughts on Major League Baseball and the Atlanta Braves right quick before we move on? I think we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's move on from baseball. We go to the NFL. The NFL draft is next week. First round coverage will begin April 27th at 8 p.m. on the old ESPN. I love the draft, guys. It's one of my favorite times of the year. I'm not going to lie. You got baseball going on, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs are going on. And then right in the heart of it, you got the best draft in professional sports, in my opinion, has turned for viewership, which is the NFL draft. So I'm really excited. There are 3 quarterbacks in this year's draft. I sent you guys the rundown as 2, and I forgot Jaren Hall from BYU just recently turned 25. So there are 3 quarterbacks in this year's draft class that are over the age of 25. Stetson Bennett, University of Georgia, obviously. Hendon Hooker, Tennessee, and I just mentioned the third one, Jaren Hall out of BYU. Well, one of these quarterbacks changed the narrative of past quarterbacks taken over the age of 25. And I'll start with you, Larry.
I think it's all about fit, man. It's really all about
agree.
fit. You can take a very talented quarterback and put him in a bad situation, and it will derail his entire career, no matter how talented the kid is.
You're talking about Detroit, aren't you?
We've seen a couple of vagabond spaces. We've seen the Detroit, we've seen the Jets, we've seen the Jaguars. You know, we've seen plenty of places where talented people go and don't necessarily pan out to where we would expect them to pan out based on their collegiate level of performance. I will tell you this. It would not surprise me in the least if Baltimore took a flyer on Stetson Bennett. That's number 1. Number 2, it may happen. Most people are saying, he may not even go undrafted. He might get a 4th or 5th round pick out of that. But the shocker for me, I think, would be Hendon Hooker. And I will tell you what I think would be his ideal landing spot based on the talent that he has. If a team like Seattle, maybe even Washington, was able to take someone like Hooker, who he's so mobile. He's mobile. He's got a gun. He's accurate. He's got wheels. If you put him in the right system and he's got talent around him, that could be a sleeper pick of the draft between those sets of quarterbacks. But I'm almost to the point where I really do believe that Stetson Bennett will be a Baltimore Raven. He will be a backup to Lamar Jackson in Todd Monken's offense. And who better to run it than the guy who got him 2 national championships running that same offense, you know?
I like the comment, and I can't disagree with it at all. I mean, Monken knows exactly what he gets if he is able to if the front office in Baltimore does take Stetson in the later rounds. Look, to answer I think this could be the year this changes. And here's a couple of reasons why. The new NFL, you protect your quarterback. The quarterback's more upright than he's ever been, and the new rules enable longer playing. Look at Tom Brady. Look at Joe Flacco. There's some guys that are ripe in age, we'll say that are still playing quarterback in today's day and age. So I think the stigma will change this year. I think one of these 3 quarterbacks will make a name for themselves and put that stigma behind everybody, saying, hey, we can draft a guy that's a little older and he can have a career. And look, Will Levis is about to be 24, so he's right there on that threshold too. But let's look at the notes here. One of these quarterbacks, and I do agree with you, Larry. I think it's Hendon Hooker. I think he's the best quarterback out of the 3 who are older, and I do believe he is actually the oldest one out of all 3 of them. Look, there have been 8 quarterbacks selected over the age of 25 in the NFL draft. Only 3 of those have been selected before the 6th round. That was quarterback Brandon Weeden, John Beck, and Chris Winkie. And those 3 quarterbacks went a combined 8-44 in the NFL. So stats are stacked against these guys. But again, I think Hendon Hooker, Stetson Bennett, Jaron Hall, these guys could all really make a name for themselves. And you mentioned it and you hit the nail on the head, Larry. It's about fit. And I'll tell you another one. If Hendon Hooker can go to Tennessee, if they're able to draft him in the later rounds, or maybe they move up in the 1st round and get him, that's been some rumors there. You pair him with Derrick Henry, who knows what can happen. You put Tannehill's mentorship there, who knows what can happen with Hendon Hooker. So the right fit is absolutely everything in this. And look, Hendon Hooker's got the talent. He's 6'4", throws great. 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions last year, threw for over 3,000 yards, and look, he didn't even play the whole season. So he was first in the NCAA in that category in terms of least amount of interceptions thrown, and he was the best in QBR stat last year at first. So guy can play ball, and I think he'll break that stigma of quarterbacks over the age of 25 not doing well at the next level. And we're all stuck in our head with Chris Winkie being 28 years old, being drafted, playing in 2 or 3 national championship games, winning one of them in the Heisman Trophy, and then just getting into the NFL and absolutely just laying an egg there. Unfortunately, he would even tell you that. But Chris Winkie's had a great coaching career since then. He's coaching there now in the NFL, and that brings us now to other NFL draft talking points right here, guys. Let's have a little conversation. Wayne, what are your thoughts on the 3 quarterbacks over the age of 25? Will that stigma be broken? And then give us something else you're looking forward to in next week's NFL draft.
Well, I'm anticipating a draft that's going to have surprises in it, not just because of how many people are going to start trading their picks at the very end there to either move up, go down, whatever. But I think that because San Francisco has such a good system there now, that if a Hooker were to go to San Francisco, that would be something. Now I know they're pretty loaded up on quarterbacks, but you never can't tell. Those guys might start moving around, or I don't know. For some reason I feel like Hooker at San Francisco would be a great matchup.
Wayne, that's not a bad statement, because we all know I'm slipping his name. A former offensive Shanahan.
Yeah.
I'm in baseball mode, folks. I'm in baseball mode. Shanahan will draft a quarterback at any given time. He'll pull the trigger. He'll do it. He did it in Atlanta. He did it in San Francisco with Brock Purdy. So that's not a bad statement. And honestly, you can't have enough quarterbacks if you have. Look at the Niners last year. I mean, look at them. They didn't have a quarterback in the NFC title game. So you can never have enough players at that position. and the competition is always good to have. So I like that comment, Wayne. I really do. Guys, any final thoughts? Larry, I know you probably got one more draft comment that you want to get in.
Yeah. So what I was thinking about when Wayne was talking, and then of course we're talking about this age. For the next at least 3, maybe even 4 years, most of your players are going to be a little older than what they traditionally would have been. 2 reasons: A, because of the COVID extra year that they get, and if you do redshirt them, then they're essentially getting 5 years, in some cases a medical clearance, 6 years of eligibility to be able to play ball. So you take an 18-year-old kid and you give him 6 years that went through COVID, you're talking about him coming out at 24 or 25 years old. So most of these players that we're going to get, at least probably until at least 2026, maybe even 27, are going to have a little age on them than your typical what we're used to seeing 22, 23-year-olds, you know. And I think that's going to affect the draft for a couple of years in several different ways, but more so how many miles are on the wheels for your skilled position players, and how much more beating have your quarterbacks taken, the ones that sit behind the pocket, you know. And I think that's going to do it until it renews itself and you get back into your normal 4 and 5 years of eligibility college wise too.
Yeah,
I think very good point. I think mentioned Will. Go ahead, Wayne. Go ahead.
I think there's another factor that plays into that is players are starting to stay in college longer, not because they're trying to pursue a degree or anything, but because that NIL money is so good.
That is a very good point. We're all on fire. We're all cooking with Crisco here tonight. And I mentioned Will Levis. He's a prime example of that. Started out, I believe, Penn State, and then played a lot of college ball. And you know, another big thing, I've started to like Will Levis, and this is my final thought on the draft. I think Will Levis might be the second quarterback taken next Thursday night. And I'll tell you why. There has been a lot of good quarterbacks that didn't play with a lot of talent in college. And Will Levis is one of those. You look at Kentucky last year, he put a lot of he won, they won seven or 8 games last year. Most of those were won simply by Will Levis's athletic ability and the way he could throw a football. So
they started out hot too.
I think, go ahead, Wayne. I was just saying, evaluation-wise, you may want to look at these guys and what they're playing with around them versus, you know, strictly tangibles and high jumps, long jumps, powerful explosions, stuff like that. So Will Levis is going to be an interesting player. Wayne, go ahead. You'll get the final thought of the night unless Larry's got one more.
No, I was just saying that Kentucky really did start off super hot last year, if I remember correctly. And then they just, you know, like every other SEC team, they started experiencing losses because it's too tough in the SEC.
It is very tough. And next year is going to be tied at the top. LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee are all going to be right there. That's a story for a different day. Next week, we are going to give our first mock draft and before our mock draft before the NFL draft on Thursday. So we'll give our top 10, and unfortunately, it always includes the Falcons as of late. So we'll have the Falcons pick of what we all think they're going to do Thursday night next week. That's a little tease. Wayne, Larry, any final thoughts on the NFL draft, guys?
It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting, and I don't know if I can say Levis is going to be the second one off the board, but I'm starting to think the more I hear some rumblings that quarterbacks are not going to hit a run as quick as we think they are.
Yeah, it's always interesting. That's why I love the draft. Everybody thinks they know, and then the draft happens, and you're like,
don't know.
Wow.
It's blown off for real.
It's always fun in games until someone gets hurt, as they say. So we'll move on from the NFL to the NBA playoffs. The Hawks are down 2-0 to the Celtics in the first round. Any chance they make a comeback in this series, Larry?
I've seen the world champion Boston Celtics of 2008 do the same thing with Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen. The series shifted to Atlanta, and Atlanta won both games on their home court. Question A, is it a possibility? Of course it is. We've seen Trae Young do wizardry when it comes to playing on the road in the playoffs. However, this team, as constructed, we've seen they've played Boston 6 times and they have lost all 6 times, which tells me that there is a talent deficiency between their big three and our big three. Now, I don't know what's going on. I still think Trae Young can do Trae Young things. I don't know what's going on with him mentally. He's had to endure a lot. And I even wrote him, even on Twitter. I was like, man, I understand. The man has had a baby. If you've ever had children, your life changes. I don't care if you're an athlete or not. You got a fiance at home that just had a baby. You don't know if she's going through postpartum stuff all the time. And that means if she's going through, he's going through. And then the media is calling him overrated. And if any other point guard in the NBA was doing what Trae Young was doing outside of Atlanta, he would be one of the top 5 people spoken about, kind of like Wayne's Ja Morant is, in terms of being able to be recognized for what he does. But the problem is it's Atlanta. And because they peaked so early with the Eastern Conference run 2 years ago, that set an expectation that realistically we weren't ready for. I don't see. I want to say my gut tells me this is a gentleman's sweep. I think Atlanta wins one of the 2 games at home, and then Boston puts us to bed. I honestly think that that's what's going to happen.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
I have not seen yet, and my statement was simply this: if the team you're playing against is shooting a higher percentage in threes than you are in twos, you will lose every game.
Yeah.
You know, the Atlanta defense is allowing Boston to shoot at 50% almost from 3 for this series. They can beat anybody when they're shooting that lights out, you know, and they're getting up so many attempts. I mean, they almost shot 52 3-pointers in game 2. And Atlanta actually had it close there at the beginning of the 4th quarter.
They did.
So if that tells me anything, it tells me this. Boston is a different animal. Just a different animal. And I think they're playing with a chip on their shoulder because they believe in their hearts that they should have beat Golden State last year. And they're playing with something to prove, you know? So as much as I love my Hawks, as much as I love Trae Young, as much as I love DeJounte Murray and everything that they're trying to do, this is just not the constructed team that can beat Boston in a 7-game series right now.
I agree with that. I would put a 0 on that number. I would say 0% chance. I have seen crazier things, but I'm a diehard Hawks fan. I've always been, and I'm the same way. Look, when your star player's 3 of 13 in the series from beyond the arc, and you just mentioned my other stat I was going to say, and the opposite team is shooting 50% better than that, basically, that you're going to have some struggles. And during the regular season, I think they played you said this is I think they played 4 times, 3 or 4 times. The Hawks gave up 126 on average to the Celtics. So this team is clearly outmatched. Snyder's doing the best he can to coach this team up. I think the core's there, but the Hawks are really going to have to get after it in the offseason and figure out how they're going to play defense, two-way basketball, and get Trae Young these open three-pointers, and also get him to get the other players on this team involved, because Bogdanovich can shoot the ball, Murray can shoot the ball. They got a great core. John Collins can protect the rim a little bit down low. Same with Capella. They get rebounds. They can get physical with you. So this team has the pieces. It's just a matter of putting them together and getting the right player that ties it all together. And right now, I just don't see that on the court. I think it's close, but I don't give them a chance in this series. And you mentioned it, why. I think the Celtics are playing with a chip on their shoulder. I think they feel like they're better than the Bucks in the regular season, granted a couple injuries here and there throughout the year. And I think they're ready to go to and make a NBA Finals run and see if they can't hoist that NBA Larry O'Brien championship trophy that they haven't had since what was that, 2008, the last time the Celtics won it? Am I incorrect on that?
No, it's 2008, the Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, KG Celtics.
So they are definitely playing with the chip on their shoulder. And I do think Atlanta will get one. If it's any of the games, their best chances to win is coming up, tomorrow night?
Friday
What?
night. Mhm.
Yep, tomorrow night when they play in Atlanta at State Farm. So we'll see. Wayne, what's your thoughts on the Hawks, Celtics? The Hawks have a chance? Yay or
Uh,
nay?
right now, it doesn't look like they do, and I'm saying that from two different perspectives. They're not playing up to the level that Boston is right now, but also I've picked Boston to be in the final, so I'm kind of gonna want them to win this series anyway.
Yeah, Boston's a fun team to watch. They're really energetic. They play great on both sides of the ball. I really like Jaylen Brown. I think the guy might have a chance at coming here in the offseason, and that's kind of why I was hinting at it. Maybe he's the piece that pulls this thing together. There's been plenty of rumors for some time that he wants to leave Boston, and there's plenty of ties here in the Atlanta area, and the Hawks would be a great landing spot for Brown. Larry, your final thoughts on the Hawks down 2-0, and we'll go around the NBA playoffs real quick.
Yeah, no. Hawks got a lot to work out in a very short period of time, and Quinn Snyder has a woo. You want to talk about trying to solve a Rubik's cube? He's got some issues when it comes to this team, and I just don't think Atlanta, as currently constructed, is good enough to compete in today's NBA. And the reason being is because the team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals was loaded with shooters, and you got rid of them all. And the second thing that they had was veteran leadership. They have none. You know,
None.
I mean, we talk about all the time. I said, man, you don't see how much they miss Solomon Hill, how much they miss Lou Williams, how much they miss Danilo Gallinari, how much they miss Kevin Herter, and even if you don't like him or not, how much they miss Cam Reddish. That link,
Yeah.
that defense gave people problems. You don't have that right now. You have two kids that are trying to figure that out, and Onyeka Okongwu and Jalen Johnson. But they look, Okongwu looks great, and he looks like he's going to take the next step and become. He might even be able to take a next level and become a star. But those three pieces, as they are, isn't enough when you're dealing with the likes of Marcus Smart, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and the rest of the game that continues to do what they do. Not only that, but the East is so physical. It is so physical. And Miami laid the blueprint out last year. How to beat Atlanta is to beat them up. Because if you can beat Trae Young up and get the ball out of his hands, no one else on that team can be trusted to put them on. And we thought DJ could do it. I've seen DeJounte Murray do it maybe 3 or 4 times all year. But no one else can put the team on their back and say, boys, let's go. I'm going to take you to a victory. And that's a problem.
That is a problem. Well said. And the Heat iced Trae Young down last year in the first round. He only averaged 15 points in that series. So from the 21 run to the Eastern Conference Finals, so now it's a completely different Trae Young, a completely different Hawks franchise. Let's go around the NBA right quick. The rest of the East, Heat lead the Bucks 1-0, game 2. About to tip off Wednesday night, 9 p.m. on ESPN at Milwaukee. 76ers lead the Nets 2-0. Game 3's Thursday in Brooklyn, 7:30 on TNT. And the Knicks and Cavs, that series is tied at 1. Game 3 Friday night in New York at 8:30 p.m. on ABC. Those are all Eastern Standard Times. Going west, NBA, Denver Nuggets lead the T-Wolves 1-0. Game 2. Wednesday night, 10 p.m. on ESPN. Lakers lead the Grizz 1-0. Game 2 also Wednesday night, 7:30. That game's tipping off pretty much right now.
Yeah, it's halftime.
Halftime right now, actually.
Memphis up by 15.
Memphis up by 15 with a little score update from our producer there. Kings lead the Warriors 2-0. Story in that one's Draymond Green will be suspended for Game 3 Thursday night in Golden State. That's at 10 p.m. on TNT. The Clips and the Suns, they're tied at 1. It's probably the most intriguing series left in the NBA playoffs right now. Game 3 Thursday in LA, 10:30 p.m. on NBA TV. Guys, let's go around the NBA, give a little news notes, a little chatter. Look, I'll start off with this one. I'm kind of pulling for the Suns here. I want to see Chris Paul win a championship. And I'd like to see Phoenix and someone else win a championship for a change other than the big guys, the Golden States, the Heats, the Boston Celtics, any of the big guys. Give me someone like Phoenix. Give me someone like Sacramento. Let me see one of these newcomers to the party win a championship. What do you say, Larry?
No, I'm all about it. I think one of the best series, especially in the West, is the Golden State Sacramento series. And I think people who have not watched Sacramento play this season need to watch just how efficient De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk are as a backcourt tandem. And it's literally like watching them at Kentucky all over again, which is why I say it's wonderful when you get the correct people on a team that have the same goal and the same drive to achieve that goal, that haven't tasted. Sacramento hadn't been in the playoffs since the 03, 04, 05, Chris Webber, Mike
14 years, 14
years. So that city's going nuts. That's
like
great.
the Bean.
Yeah, absolutely, JJ. You're absolutely right. So to me, even on the East Coast and having to stay up late to watch those games because they are so entertaining is top notch. The Clippers series with Phoenix is a dogfight. It is a dogfight, and you can see it. Russell Westbrook is almost like a dog uncaged. Kawhi is still as cool as the other side of the pillar. And no, I got you, JJ. And when Paul George gets back, that's what I want to see. And
I was just doing the Kawhi Leonard laugh. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good, man. You good. But there's a lot of talent still left in the Western Conference. Eastern Conference size, I think the mighty I think it will end up being what we anticipate. I honestly think that Boston and Milwaukee will end up being in the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm leaning towards the Lakers. I'm sorry, Wayne, but it depends on what Ja does. If Ja comes back and he gets back healthy, then my opinion would change. But if Ja is out for any length of time, the Lakers are a better team top to bottom than the Grizzlies without Ja. But I think, and y'all might laugh, but I think it's going to be the Lakers and Sacramento in the Western Conference Finals. Don't hate me, but I
don't hate it. Kevin Huerter's balling. The Sacramento Kings are playing good ball, top to bottom. Sabonis, as long as he doesn't get stepped on by Draymond Green's pretty effective down low. I think it's crazy that people are saying Draymond Green shouldn't have been suspended. Of course he should have been suspended. He stomped on the player. Sabonis definitely, brought it amongst themselves. There was some physicality throughout leading up to that in games one and leading up to it in that game too. So yeah, I think he should have been suspended. You can't just step on somebody and not expect any repercussions. But no, I think this is a very intriguing NBA playoffs. Injuries have been the key. Paul George is hurt too and banged up. I really think, in my opinion, the winner of that Clippers-Suns series could win the whole darn thing. If Paul George gets healthy, you have a big three out there in the Clippers that can really do some things. And I mentioned I want to see someone else win one. It'd be great to see the other team in LA win one. That'd be great. So, and then all this, you mentioned it on the nail on the head, Larry. The Lakers are an underdog in this scenario, which is absolutely crazy. And they can make a run, and we all know who they got. They got LeBron James. They got the best player in the NBA, and he can put a team on his back and carry him to the finals. Wayne, I'll give you the final thought in the NBA playoffs, man, and then we'll get to our final thought for the show of the evening.
Well, if it's not going to be Memphis, I'd rather it be Phoenix in those finals. But, I'm still hanging on to Memphis. Tillman seems to be picking up the pace tonight and holding his own against LeBron James. So we'll see what happens. The fourth quarter is going to be the big deal. That's really the only part of the game that will matter, I think.
As it usually does in the NBA postseason. Guys, that'll wrap up our show. Let's get to the final thought of the night. I'll tee the final thoughts up. UGA spring game was last Saturday. The defending champs looked great across the board. My biggest takeaway of the day, though, Mekhi Muse, the wide receiver kick return man from Gwinnett County, had a day returning kickoffs. They didn't really allow it. They were kind of doing a fake kickoff return. They'd kick it in the end zone, and no matter what, they let the guy return it. But he looked speedy in returns, and he had 4 catches for 91 yards, including a 54-yard catch and run. So guy looks really good, really solidified the kick return spot. That was the brightest spot of the day for the Dogs. And then, of course, Carson Beck looked pretty good, who might replace Stetson Bennett. So, look, Mekhi Muse, he's going to make an impact this fall. That's my final statement of the evening. Wayne, we'll let you go next.
Well, here's something that I would like to see, and I don't know how we can make it happen, and I don't know who can make it happen, but I want to see 12 rounds in Las Vegas, pay-per-view, Rudy Gobert, Draymond Green. You know, if you can battle on Twitter, you can battle in the ring. Let's get it done.
Hey, Jake Paul's been doing it for a couple of years now. Just get their promoters on board, and I am down for the cause, Wayne. Hashtag GoBearVerse. Versus. Larry, I'll give you the final thought of the night, my friend.
No, that's good stuff, Wayne. Celebrity Deathmatch 2023 back in effect again here for the public. If you remember those claymation type battles that we used to see back in the day. But one of my final thoughts is pertaining to Kawhi Leonard. And even in this playoff series, I begin to think about what would be his legacy if he could then lead the Clippers to another title, being the key ingredient on a San Antonio team, leading a Toronto team, and now trying to take an LA team away from the king, LeBron James himself, and trying to crown the Clipper town is the real king of LA. Kawhi doesn't say too much. He doesn't do too much. But his play on the court, you can't even criticize him. The man is a silent assassin. He's just a bucket getter. And these NBA playoffs are going to be one of the most entertaining sets of playoffs that we've seen in quite some time. But because the stars are finally in the West playing like stars.
I like it. It's a great final thought. That concludes our show. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like the content, please like, please subscribe. Give us a like on Facebook, a reaction on Twitter, a retweet, whatever it is. Like and subscribe. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify. For Larry in Ladairsville, Wayne in Memphis, I'm JJ. Todd Corder was absent tonight. We'll see you next week. Get you one.